St. Helena Parish has experienced many wonderful events. In the early days of the parish, the celebration of Mass was in a small wooden farmhouse, then in a small wooden chapel, and later in our present church facilities. Finally, we have the reality of Mass being celebrated in our new, beautiful church. We have much reason to be thankful to God. Over the parish's long history, God has blessed the clergy, religious, and parishioners with the courage and fortitude to look not only at the present need, but also to look to the future. It is this gift of God that has brought us to this great day. Our future certainly promises to be exciting, special, and eventful. Our parish, as a community of believers, is very much alive with many ministries, serving one another and others in God's name. Our service is a manifestation of our deep faith in God. As a parish, we invite everyone to use and share his or her gifts of time, talent, and treasure. As you view this video and see the many familiar images and see just how much the founding members did to make our parish possible, please feel free to become a part of as many ministries as you feel called. Just as the original parishioners joyfully served God, as a parish we should serve God and his people as we participate fully in the life of the parish. Be all you can for God, and may God, through the intercession of St. Helena, bless us. Enjoy this video and reflect on the inspiration from the past as how we can strive to be better disciples of Christ.
In order to acknowledge our history as a community of St. Helenas, it's only fitting that we look back at both St. Helena and St. Teresa, the inspiring forces behind the church we love so much. St. Helena was born in Drepanum around the year 250. She was born to a lowly innkeeper. Born into humility and modesty, she valued all that she had. Helena married the Roman general Constantius Chlorus and bore him a son by the name of Constantine in Nascius, Serbia, in the year 274. Constantius remained active in the Roman army and served as tribune and provincial governor. He served under Emperor Maximian, a well-known persecutor of Christians at that time. Constantius was elevated to Caesar of the Western Roman Empire. At this point, Constantius renounced his marriage to Helena so he could marry Maximian's stepdaughter, Theodora. Maximian required that Helena be put into exile. Some years later, Constantius was ruling the empire with Galerius. When Constantius died, Constantine was elevated to emperor. With this, he found his mother after a 14-year separation and conferred onto her the title of Augusta, meaning Mother of the Sovereign. He had coins printed bearing her effigy and renamed the town where she was born as Helenopolis. Constantine still had to fight for the empire and fought in the battle at the Milvian Bridge. Just before this victory for Constantine, he experienced a vision of a shining cross in the sky. The cross was inscribed with the words, "By this sign shall you be victor." Constantine subsequently added crosses to his forces' helmets, and the enemy was defeated. Constantine was now inspired to convert the Roman Empire to Christianity, thus affecting the spread of this religion across the world forever. This influenced Helena to reaffirm her faith and her religion of Christianity. She continued her devout service to God. She followed tradition of baptism at an advanced age, and she was baptized at the age of 63. She led an earnestly Christian life and helped the spread of Christianity into cities of the West. She helped in the building of new churches, especially in Rome and Trier. She also built 2 significant churches for the worship of God in true veneration of the Savior, one in Bethlehem near the Grotto of the Nativity and one on the Mount of Ascension. Helena remained devout in her life. She loved and exerted kindness towards the poor, soldiers, and prisoners that she met along her many journeys. She always dressed humbly and worshipped with normal citizens in their churches, wearing what they wore. She held the utmost reverence towards God and the church, and worked to beautify it with decorations and ornaments, whether it was a basilica or a humble chapel in a small town or village. Helena died around the age of 80. Although it was uncertain whether Helena took an active part in the discovery of the cross, it was proclaimed after she died that she actually found the Holy Cross, that which Jesus suffered and died on. It was stated that she worshipped not the wood, but the King that hung on the wood. Today, the fragments of the Holy Cross have been distributed to a large number of churches all around the world. She believed that the Holy Cross was the property of the whole church. A fragment of the Holy Cross is present even today at St. Helena's Church and is venerated on Good Friday. Born in 1873, Teresa Martin was a young French girl when she discovered that she wanted to belong to God. Her community told her that she was too young. After this frustration, she asked the Pope to let her be a sister. At the age of 15, she was permitted to follow 2 of her sisters into the Carmelite convent at Lisieux. She spent the remaining 9 years of her life in dedication to God, dying of tuberculosis at the age of 24. Her last words were, "After my death, I will let fall a shower of roses." She was just another person in the eyes of her community until after her death. Soon the whole world heard about her, reading her autobiography and loving what they read. Soldiers chose Saint Teresa as their patroness. She became the saint of French aviators. Priests asked her to take care of them, and Catholic missions were helped with her prayers. Teresa, the little flower of Jesus, has filled the world with her miracles. History directly impacts the present and the future, and it was back on a brisk autumn day in October of 1919 that the journey began, one with many twists and turns and ups and downs, leading us to where we stand today. Father Higgins, an assistant pastor at Most Precious Blood Parish in Philadelphia, received word from Dennis Cardinal Doherty that Higgins was to be the pastor and founding father of a new parish in Montgomery County. Father Higgins, just 8 years out of the seminary, had been given the job to serve God as pastor of a new flock. Father Higgins was anxious about his new assignment and diligently researched this new area where the parish was to be located. He frequented Leary's bookstore in Philadelphia, reading every book about Whitpain Township. In his search for information, he learned that Bluebell was an early German center and that Baines Church was founded about 1740. He read on to find out that the Germans settled in the township during the first half of the 18th century when Jacob Yost and his son Daniel came to Center Square in about 1727. Whitpain Township was established in 1701 and is one of the oldest municipalities in the county. The area of the township known as Center Square played a part of the foundation of our country. It was the site of a military hospital during the Revolutionary War following the retreat of Washington's troops from a battle at Germantown. Father Higgins was unsure about what to expect in this new adventure. He stayed with the McCloskeys on Skipback Pike. Father did what any founding father of a parish did at the time. He visited many of the Catholic families in the area. In a diary by Mrs. Reeser, who lived in the township, it was quoted that on December 13, 1919, the Catholics of the area gave a dance and bazaar in Center Square Fire Hall to benefit the new church. Father began his search for some place to live and also to set up a temporary church. He found a suitable residence, leasing a farmhouse on Swede Road just a quarter of a mile from what is now Johnson Highway. Father lived at this farmhouse for a year, until a significant event in St. Helena's history occurred. It was on May 17, 1922, that Miss Ellen Duddy, a devout Catholic and regular at Father Higgins' Masses, passed away that the prospect for the foundation of a new church and the building of a shrine seemed possible. In her will, Miss Duddy left the farm that she loved and all of her land and livestock to Father Higgins. She stated that all the rest, residue, and remainder of my estate I give, devise, and bequeath to the Reverend Francis E. Higgins, his heirs and assigns, absolutely. She knew that this young priest who captured the imagination of residents of the area with his devotion to God would know exactly what to do with the land. Father moved into his new residence and set up a chapel in a building adjoining the farmhouse. Father was very grateful and proud of his new parish. Mr. Joseph Gallagher recalled Father's first days at his new residence. He was like a new man, said Gallagher. Things were tough at the time, and if it weren't for the chickens and the eggs, I believe Father would have starved to death. Father immediately began his work on the land. With the help of the men of the parish and other friends, he converted an old quarry hole into a grotto and shrine, which brilliantly stands on our grounds to this day. Father became not only the pastor of this church, but also the head custodian of the church. He regularly cut the lawn of the 92 acres of land with his John Deere tractor. Father became a frequent visitor to Charlie Murphy's John Deere dealership.
And he was just a regular guy, and he would come out in his work clothes and to get the tractor repaired.
Water was a crowning feature of the landscape of the lands around the old chapel and even the present grounds of the church. People from the neighborhood trekked regularly to the spot with bottles, jars, and pails to fetch home the fresh water. In addition, these spring waters that once flowed so freely on the grounds of St. Helena's were believed to possess healing qualities like those at Lourdes. The stone ponds fed into a lake so large that children watched tadpoles in the summer and skated in the winter. Since then, the lake is dried up and the area where it was is now part of the forest area. The concrete forms for the ponds are still existent on the grounds. Unfortunately, the water has since stopped flowing. George Conaway was quoted as saying, "One day the water just stopped running. They set a dynamite charge blasting through a corner of the church property to build the northeast extension of the Pennsylvania Turnpike. That was in the 1950s, and the blast was so forceful it changed the rock formations, the water table, and the spring just dried up. It didn't dribble away. One day it just stopped. We had just fixed up the pools and fountains, and we had to pipe in water from another location." Father dedicated his chapel to St. Teresa of the Little Flower. The chapel was very small, with leaded glass windows and marble altars. It featured plaques on the main wall behind the altar and an area that contained the candles that were lit for individual intentions.
I can remember coming out here one Sunday afternoon with my father. My father was the chief engineer of the Center Square Fire Company, and he was probably out here checking fire extinguishers or something. And I remember coming in a door at the front end of the church and seeing candles lit in dark red globes.
Father continued his devotion to St. Teresa by planting rose bushes all over the grounds of the church. Furthermore, he initiated Sunday afternoon novena devotions in her honor. There was a sign the size of the billboard that identified the property and buildings as the Shrine of St. Teresa of the Little Flower. It included a huge color picture of St. Teresa holding roses. Subsequently, by word of mouth and by passers-by stopping in, the message was spread, telling of the work that Father was doing, the way he preached, with his down-to-earth sermons and his devotion to St. Teresa. Needless to say, the area residents were captivated by such enthusiasm, so much so that hundreds of people from miles around made pilgrimages to the grounds, some in wheelchairs, on crutches or canes, seeking cures and relief from pain and suffering. Located right next to the trolley lines and alongside DeKalb Pike, the Shrine of St. Teresa of the Little Flower was accessible to everyone. Joan Wheeler Schmitz remembered that the times of the 4 services from 7:15 to 10:15 a.m. were scheduled in such a way as to allow for the members of the congregation to take the trolley. The trolley stop times were every hour on the 5s. Some people even walked from Norristown. Mrs. Agnes Ferreira recalled seeing the many people begin their trek at Holy Savior Church.
As a little one, I remember people coming out to St. Helena's, or used to say St. Helena's, now we say St. Helena's, used to come out here to pay tribute to St. Teresa. And people walked barefoot, and they walked. They came in groups, and some even knelt some of that way, or maybe most of the way. But they were so inspired by St. Teresa. And again, people came from everywhere. And especially my grandmother came with lots of her friends from East Marshall Street in Norristown, or from Walnut Street, all around Holy Savior's Church. And they were, again, just so inspired. And people came from New Jersey and lots of other areas to take part in that pilgrimage.
Most people who visited the old chapel signed their names into a book at the shrine. Whenever Father planned fundraising, cards were sent to everyone announcing the event. Mr. Paul DeAngelis recalled addressing over 3,000 cards at a time to Allentown, Lansdale, Paoli, Bristol, Conshohocken, Germantown, Philadelphia, and even New Jersey. Since this parish was formed from old farmland, it was not unusual to see chickens and ducks around the grounds of the church. Many people who were parishioners around that time period have recalled sitting in the chapel with roosters, chickens, and ducks sitting on the windowsills. Birds were also known to fly through the chapel. Mr. Francis Haley recalls that Father Higgins had an Irish setter that he believes was named Buckles. He recalled that the dog would roam around the building as the congregation arrived, and after the last person had arrived, the Irish setter would go into the chapel and take his resting position in the rear of the chapel. The dog would make his way to the communion rail, where he would lay down for Father's sermons. Then after Father had finished, Buckles returned to his position in the back of the chapel. In 1923, Father Higgins told Cardinal Doherty that the parish was now numbering 75 families and had become self-supporting. The little church located in underdeveloped Montgomery County no longer needed funds from diocesan missions. Father diligently continued his work, and on October 5, 1930, the parish hosted a colorful and impressive religious procession. Around 1,500 people participated in a pageant, fashioned after the picturesque religious processions of the Middle Ages. The pageant, named Christ Living in His Brethren, was presented on the sprawling land of the parish. It is said to have captivated an audience of more than 50,000 from as far away as New Jersey, Delaware, and New York. The procession started at DeKalb Pike and extended down around the Crystal Lake and up to the altar built especially for this occasion. Mrs. Reeser's diary states that she was impressed by the pageant and that it was pretty. The years went on, and Father Higgins still captivated the throngs of people who traveled to the small shrine. The parish had fundraisers during its early years of existence. One such event was an annual Las Vegas night in the barn. Blackjack, roulette, and many other Las Vegas-style games were played at this gathering. Joan Wheeler Schmitz recalls a huge roulette wheel as being a big attraction at this event. Mrs. Henry Strahl, who lived on DeKalb Pike near Skipback Pike, was 5 years old when she first met Father Higgins. She recalled attending Mass on the second floor of the spring house near the Duddy farm. She also remembered the little house near the first church that had been converted into a religious store and operated by Mr. George Miller. The names of the families she remembered that attended the early Masses included the Preets, Floats, Myers, Zorniks, Wolpers, Degnans, Reeds, and 2 families named Burns. Mr. Speece recalled how on one occasion he and Father were standing at a particular spot on the grounds. Father pointed down toward the lake and said, "There where both the sun and the moon cast reflections is where I want to build the church. There also is the spot I want to be buried." Father became ill in 1946, and it became apparent that his dream might not be fulfilled. Father was hospitalized on 2 occasions at Sacred Heart Hospital in Norristown. On April 19, 1948, Father Higgins died at noon at St. Agnes Hospital. It was deeply emotional to the many parish families that their friend and beloved founding father of the parish had passed away. On April 23rd at 10 in the morning, a funeral service for Father was offered, and burial was located around the spot where he had previously envisioned his new church. During Father Higgins' illness, Father Thomas P. Kelly was assigned to St. Helena's to serve as administrator. Following Father Higgins' death, Father Kelly was named pastor. Father Kelly, observing the growth of the parish and looking ahead to the future needs of the children, started a building program designed to educate the children in a Catholic background. He put forth the plans not only for the new school, but also for a temporary church that could accommodate the growing parish family. This was a time of tremendous growth both in the area and in the parish. He went to the Sisters of Mercy at their mother house in Marion and told them of his plans to build a school and his need of sisters to staff his classrooms. On the Feast of the Most Precious Blood, July 1st, 1948, 3 sisters traveled from Marion to lay the groundwork for the establishment of St. Helena's School at Center Square. Sisters M. Teresa, Mary Assisium, and M. John Alois arrived just before noon at the newly designated convent across the highway on DeKalb Pike. Father Kelly and a delegation of women of the parish greeted them. The religious vacation classes were opened July 6, 1948, in the sacristy of the church, with 65 pupils in attendance. The classes continued each day throughout the month of July. On July 18, 1948, ground was broken for the new school with the Reverend John J. Graham, D.D., Assistant Superintendent of Schools for the Archdiocese of Philadelphia, speaking on the great need for Catholic education. At the close of summer school, the two sisters who accompanied Sister Mary Teresa to St. Helena's returned to Marion to receive their appointments for the coming year. On September 1st, 1948, St. Helena's School opened in the Blue House across Route 202. At the time, it also served as the convent for the parish. The total enrollment was 44 pupils, from grades 1 to 4 inclusive.
They had 2 classrooms in the school when it began. They had 2 grades, first and second grade as one class, and third and fourth grade as another class.
Sister Teresa taught grades 3 and 4. Sister M. Juanita taught the combined first and second grades. This arrangement of classes in the convent prevailed until the completion of the new school the following year. The children in the early years of the parish were transported in a new bus purchased by 2 friends of the church, Richard Crean, a member of the parish, and J. A. Nolan, a member of the Little Flower Parish in Philadelphia. This resulted in savings for both Father Kelly and the parish. The cornerstone for the new school was laid November 7, 1948, with Bishop Highland presiding and Reverend Father John P. Connery preaching the sermon. The beautiful new modern school was opened on September 1, 1949, with kindergarten and grades 1 to 6. 7th and 8th grades were added in 1950.
In the new school, I did a lot of work in classrooms on building cabinets. They weren't part of the contract. So the cabinets in each classroom were made of red birch, and they had sliding doors, and they were kind of unique.
All the while, the parish was in the middle of a building project for the new church. Excitement built up as the finish of the construction grew near. On October 5, 1952, the 33rd anniversary of the founding of the parish, the new church was opened after much anticipation. Archbishop O'Hara was the main celebrant of the Mass and blessed the new building. This building had become home to the many new activities and events in the parish. Archbishop O'Hara, in a brief address, congratulated Father Kelly and the parishioners for the many sacrifices entailed in achieving this beautiful place of worship and a school destined to place the knowledge of God in the hearts of future generations. The congregation numbered more than 600 at the Mass. Even as the new school and church were built, the parishioners and Father Kelly realized that this new church was in fact only temporary. Eventually, the space would be integrated into the floor plan of the school itself. This played a big role in the design, placing the church in its current centralized location. The church continued its growth through the years. It became apparent original parish boundaries were too vast, and soon the church began its first of 3 splits. On December 8, 1954, the first split of the church occurred, creating Visitation of Our Lord Church and School in Trooper. In 1957, the second split of the church occurred, creating Epiphany of Our Lord Parish in Plymouth Meeting from St. Helena's. The school moved upward and onward from its original foundation, and on April 20, 1957, at 10:30 a.m., Bishop McCormick administered the sacrament of confirmation for the first time since the opening of the school.
It was the May processions that started over in church and went down out the back of the church, down the walkway, ended up down the grotto, and the Blessed Mother got crowned down there, the statue down there in the grotto.
A mark of maturity and success of any organization is its ability to achieve not only its own financial independence, but to aid and assist others in gaining a similar position. Such was the stature of St. Helena's, In the late 1950s, when it planned and carried out the adoption of the sister parish in Clayton, Georgia, through the unselfish efforts of parishioners and Father Kelly and the next pastor, Father Kearney. The missionary idea first took root when Father Kelly started a correspondence with an old friend, Bishop Francis Highland of Atlanta, Georgia. Father Kelly set up a meeting of parishioners and told how a small missionary church in Rayburn County, consisting of 35 families, was struggling for existence. In 1960, the parish was composed of only 25 Catholics, despite a population of 1,500. Clayton was a summer resort community, and during the vacation periods, the congregations numbered about 170 on Sundays. In 1958, 59, and 1960, special collections were held for our adopted church and were forwarded on a regular basis to the bishop's office in Atlanta via the Philadelphia office of the Society of the Propagation of the Faith. Bishop Highland and the missionary fathers who served this parish were extremely grateful for the regular monthly checks of between $200 and $300 each. In early 1960, when the fund, which had been accumulating interest, reached over $4,000, the bishop and Father Kelly instituted plans for the building of a chapel. In April 1961, Bishop Highland reported that construction was underway. The missionary fathers were so appreciative of the charitable donations from St. Helena Center Square that they insisted on saying Mass in the uncompleted chapel while work was underway. Dedication took place in August of 1962. Both Bishop Highland and Father Kelly were unable to attend the dedication because of transfers to other churches. On June 6, 1962, the third and final split of our parish occurred, forming the parish of St. Titus in East Norriton. Our once large parish that covered almost 25 square miles was now split into 4 Catholic parishes, making worship for the area residents a little easier to access. Mrs. Eleanor Graham McDevitt recalled, "We desperately needed money for the new church and school. We had these magnificent grounds, yet we were poor in terms of money. The township was very tough. We were not allowed to have bingo and raffle wheels, games of chance like other parishes to raise money. What to do with all this land was the question. We came up with the idea for a horse show. It was horse country. A horse show would embrace the community, and with a country fair, we could raise money and share these grounds." Father Kearney did all he could to help in the process. A committee was formed consisting of parish people to travel to the county's best horse shows, like the horse show in Devon. The committee was to mirror the horse shows they viewed as well as they could and set up a horse show at St. Helena's. The first horse show was in 1963 and brought celebrities to St. Helena's, including Senator Richard Schweiker and socialite Hope Montgomery Scott. Senator Schweiker brought with him a flag that flew over the Capitol building, and Father Kearney had a flagpole erected so that it could be used in the ceremonies. Hope Montgomery Scott was an honorary judge in the horse show. The women of the parish welcomed Miss Scott and held a white-gloved formal tea. Eleanor McDevitt remembered the daintier times of the horse show. The horse show developed into a country fair as well, featuring freshly cooked favorites, such as cheesesteak, funnel cake, and pizza, and a handful of games for the parish and area children to play. The horse show became an instant success, becoming a St. Helena's tradition and its largest fundraiser, leading to the future netting of tens of thousands of dollars annually. Mrs. McDevitt also recalled that the old chapel had become unsafe. The church definitely could not afford at the time to repair it or bring it up to code. So the Center Square Fire Company came out to the shrine and conducted a controlled burn of the old chapel. At the end of that painful day, all that remained was a pile of embers. It was in 1970 that the church celebrated its golden anniversary with special event. Parishioners not only looked back at the past, which led up to this milestone, but looked ahead to the future. Father Kearney celebrated this memorable time with his parish. The past was marked with the destruction of the shrine, and the future was marked by the growth in the area. In 1974, Father Coates arrived at St. Helena's from Visitation Church. He worked 2 years as an assistant to Father Kearney until Father Kearney passed away in 1976. Father Coates took over as pastor of this church.
I knew all the people in St. Helena's Family Church. I visited every family. I knew all the families who lived there. I knew where they lived. I knew their name, what they did, how long they lived in the parish, and I knew all about them, the whole family. At that time, we only had about 600 families in St. Helena's Parish.
Father also took up some of the same jobs that Father Higgins did some 57 years before. Father was often seen cutting the grass on the rolling 74 acres of land, painting the ceiling of the church, and undertaking whatever job came up. Father enjoyed his time as pastor and made many great friends in the parish.
The most significant memory among them would have to be Father Coates, the pastor. He was terrific as a parish priest, as a pastor, especially his concern for the sick.
Father could be found selling chances at the horse show and driving his truck from stand to stand at the annual event. After almost 20 years of service to the St. Helena community, Father retired. Masses were held to celebrate Father, and the school children had a Father Coates Day to send him on his way. Today, Father resides at St. Mary's Manor in Lansdale. When Father Coates left St. Helena's, Father Vadino appeared on the scene as our new pastor. Father had many ideas for the church and quickly got started on renovations and restorations in many different sections of both the church and the school. Father was the leading force behind the new windows in the church, the air conditioning, and the restoration of the vestibule and the current St. Teresa shrine. Father became a well-known face in the community. In the spring of 2000, Father Vadino was relocated to Our Lady of the Assumption Parish in Stratford. Ceremonies were held for Father as he continued on to his new parish. With this departure came an arrival and addition to the line of pastors of St. Helena's Church. In June of 2000, Father Joseph Nicolo arrived from Philadelphia at this rural parish. Like the line of pastors before him, Father recognized the work that he was to become responsible for. His vision for even more revitalization and building quickly became apparent to the church. It wasn't long after Father had arrived that changes took shape in the building of the church. Father was inspired when he looked into the history of the church and realized that the current building was to be only a temporary church until we could expand. This discovery became an issue with Father, and he most certainly wanted to help out the parish community to build the church that was always intended. Father worked with a group of architects and financing committee to see exactly what was feasible and what we could do to help with what was not feasible. The Archdiocese had given permission to sell off some of the land to gain funds for this immense project, just as it did during Father Kelly's day to build the school. Father also started a program of pledges from parishioners in order to raise the funds needed. After all this, it came as a delight to many that Father would try his best to preserve what was already embedded into the land, such as the grotto, and work to build the long-time desired church. On January 13, 2002, Father Nicolo shared with the parish his vision of the brand new church, daily mass chapel, and social and recreational center, along with ideas for refurbishing the present church. The parishioners became excited. On October 6, 2002, the parish celebrated the liturgical groundbreaking. The Mass and groundbreaking included the participation of Monsignor Marine, Father Coates, Father Vadino, and the various groups that had worked so hard to make this dream a reality. The parish community is anxiously awaiting the completion of the new church. In June of 2003, the work began, and it is currently underway. As the parish community awaits this glorious completion and dedication of a new church, history continues to be written. St. Helena's, this family institution, continues in its journey, striving to be an accurate depiction of what Jesus would want. Little did Father Higgins know that within a period of a little more than 84 years, our small rural shrine and church would be the mother church of 3 other churches, home to about 1,800 families, and a place that has touched so many lives.
I want to thank all the priests that were with me. I can't go all names because I forget them, but I certainly wish them the best of luck. And the new pastor, Father Niccolo, I hope when he builds this new church, it will satisfy him and satisfy the amount of people that have distinguished themselves in that particular area of Center Square, that whatever he does will meet all the demands of all the people who have gone to St. Helena's and have arrived there since I left. And that was back, way back, when Father Zatino took over from me back in the late 90s, 93 or something like that. And then Father Niccolo came around a few years later to become the new pastor, and he's building a new atmosphere in the whole settlement of Center Square.
I wish all the best to the people of the parish of St. Helena's to continue your strong tradition of faithful Catholicism and to maintain your activity, which is so expansive and touches on so many entities of what it means to be a vibrant Catholic parish in the Archdiocese of Philadelphia.